I'm a chubby male, so creepers tend to leave me alone. When I was 19, I lived in Kentucky, pretty far from my North Michigan hometown. It was this little town called Pikeville, where there was very little crime. I actually kind of miss it, but I digress. My family came down to visit me for my birthday that year, and we agreed to meet up at the Hardys in town the morning after they arrived. I got there a lot earlier than them, and me being the type to show up 15 minutes early to everything, and them being the type who show up late. As I was standing outside waiting, this guy walks up to me. If you've ever lived in a place like this, you'll know everyone is super friendly. So it didn't strike me as odd when he began talking to me. During our conversation, all kinds of alarm bells should have gone off. Like after he found out I was in college, he said he saw me at a party. This is impossible, as I never once went out to a party. When he found out that I'm a gamer nerd, he started talking all about playing D&D all the time. He kept taking sips out of some alcohol bottle, mind you it's 10 AM at this point, and offered me some as well. He began talking about how he lost all his friends because he got into drugs, and I felt a little bad for him. He asked if I wanted to walk around for a bit, and since I knew my family wouldn't be there for a while, I went. This guy had been talking about how he lost all his friends due to drugs, and I felt bad for the guy. That, coupled with the fact that I hadn't encountered anyone like this, and the lack of crime kind of disarmed that warning part of my brain. We walked and spoke for a little while, maybe 10 minutes, before I realized that we were in a shady-looking part of town. I had never even realized there were shady parts of town of this small town, but here we were. We stopped in front of a house that looked long abandoned with this dark, narrow, sketchy alley next to it. He starts talking about how he knows 2 girls that live here and how they like to party. He tells me about how DTF they are and asks if I want to meet them. It was at this point my common sense finally kicks in. I'm in a bad part of town with a sketchy guy I don't know who's just talking about doing drugs and no one knows I'm here. And now he wants me to go into an obviously abandoned house under the guise of meeting some ladies. I obviously declined his offer and immediately said I needed to go back to my family as they were waiting. He seemed a little upset by this and then asked if I could help him move a pool table into his van, which was conveniently parked down the alley. I declined as well. This is when he began to reach into his jacket pocket. Since those bells started going off, I realized just how much it might look like this guy might try and shank me. At this moment, my stepmom did the only thing she ever did for me. She called me to see where I was, and I took this as an opportunity to hastily exit. The creep followed me for 3 blocks. I don't know what exactly that he wanted, but it was probably just to rob me. Still, that area has a good amount of disappearances and is one of the worst in the country for people being taken. I don't know what could have happened had I agreed, but I can't help but think that one of them is a scene from The Silence of the Lambs, where Bill lures a victim into his van. I hope he got the help he needed and is doing better, but I also hope just as much that I never have the misfortune of running into him again. I was 14 at the time, and had spent the night at my best friend's house, who was a year younger than me. We were pretty responsible, well-behaved kids, so we were trusted to be left home alone at times. That morning it was just 3 girls in the house, me, my friend, and her older sister, who was actually just about to leave for work. Parents were at work too. It was around 10 to 1 AM, and I was laying in her bed, half awake, trying to fall back asleep. I'm a massively light sleeper, and her sister would always be the loudest in the morning when she got ready. And although me and her older sister, low-key, weren't that fond of each other, I never said anything. My friend Gabby and her sister Cheyenne. I could hear Cheyenne making her way out the front door, Gabby behind her to close and lock it after her. I heard Cheyenne say something along the lines of, "Make sure everything is locked," and how there's a weird man across the street sitting on the curb facing the house. She leaves. I got up because going back to sleep was not an option. I have had sleep issues for as long as I can remember, so I was sitting on her bed with pancakes, and we were just chilling eating our breakfast. This was about 10 minutes after Cheyenne had left, so me and Gabby were just chilling and talking, and I brought up how our sister said something about a guy across the street, and I said something along the lines of, "Your sister is so dramatic." I kid you not, there's knocking right on the door after I said that. Me and Gabby sat there looking at each other in silence. Her bedroom was located at the front of the home, so windows faced the street. I peeped through, but I didn't see a guy across the street. I creeped to the front door and I made a tiny peek to see who it was because her front door had this big old window with some shades. I didn't want whoever was there to see me. Long and behold, it was him, the guy Cheyenne warned us about. I knew because Gabby silently freaked out and was like, "Oh, it's him." We ran to the bathroom and called her sister. Gabby's house never really got visitors. I know this because I was always there. So there we are, locked in the bathroom, flipping out. Gabby said something like, "He's seen me after Cheyenne left. He knows I'm home alone." I was beyond scared, like, what if he somehow finds his way inside? We just knew he didn't have good intentions, so obviously now he knows there's a young girl in the house by herself. So her sister was on the freeway and wasn't able to return, so she told us to call their uncle who lives nearby. Her Uncle Mike rode a motorbike, who was really nice and tough looking. Me and Gabby are like sisters almost. So while we're waiting for Uncle Mike to show up, the stranger starts to frantically ring the doorbell. It got quiet for a little bit, and then he started to knock on the door really slowly. It was the creepiest thing ever. All her dogs outside are barking like crazy. Then before we know it, I heard her uncle's bike pull up. In relief, we left ourselves out the bathroom and run outside. So us two little girls thank God that he made it quickly. The story isn't over though. When her uncle pulled up, he pointed him out. "Is that him down there?" Gabby lived across the street from an elementary school, which was only a few houses down. The dude was standing in front of it facing us, watching us. Whoever that weirdo was, I'm just glad I never saw him again. Back in 2006, when I was 17, I met this girl called Cindy through mutual friends. We became really good friends and hung out often over the next few years. As the years went by, she started hanging out with the wrong crowd and acting gangster. By 2009, I had my own car, and the only time Cindy would call me to hang out is if I did her a favor first, which was a ride somewhere. Eventually, I got tired of this, and any time I would call her, she usually wouldn't answer. I got fed up and stopped being her friend. In 2011, after a while of not seeing each other, I forgot who contacted who, but we got together to hang out. As usual, she needs a favor first, a ride over to the next city to visit a friend. Forgetting all the times this happened in the past, I said yes, and this led to one of the most terrifying moments of my life. After picking her up at her house, she tells me last moment that a female friend is coming with us too. Me being an idiot, I pick her up too, and I'm all happy that I'm hanging out with two girls. We get on the highway, and despite asking numerous times where we were going and what we were doing, she wouldn't give me a straight answer. But I drive on as I'm happy to be hanging out with two girls. A while later we reach our destination, and it's a correctional facility. She came to visit a male friend, who we'll just call Suspect. After sitting alone in a lobby and questioning my life choices, they come back and we leave. I was pretty quiet on the drive home, and they didn't even ask me what was wrong. They happily chatted and left me out of the conversation. I dropped them both off and went home. A few days later, Cindy calls me and asks me to hang out again, telling me it will just be her this time. I say yes, and we set up a meeting for the following day. Then something important came up, and I called Cindy to let her know that I wouldn't be able to see her then. She didn't like this, got angry, and hung up. A few hours later, when I was home, she messages me and tells me not to blame her if guys come looking for me. A short while later, I get a call from the correctional facility, and being stupid, I answer it. A gangster-sounding guy addresses me by name, insults me a bit, tells me that I'm about to get lit up. Cindy then messages me saying that there are guys in my neighborhood looking for me, and this is terrifying because I was out in front of my house working on my car. I try calling her and she doesn't answer. She texts me again letting me know they're close, and I immediately try to call her again to no reply. She texts me and says the only way she can stop them is to pick her up and drive her to the correctional facility. Being terrified and fearing for my life, I oblige. This time she brings another female friend, Melanie, who I know, and we head over to the correctional facility as they blare their music in my car and act like nothing happened. After they visit the inmate, they proceed to drink in my car despite me telling them not to. They blare out more of their music and eventually spill an entire bag of chips and crush it into the carpet. I ask them to clean it up as they're getting out of the car, but they just walk away without a word. I dump all the garbage and chips out my car onto the street in front of her house and find my iPod on the floor, oily and mixed in with everything. Feeling terrified and disrespected, I block Cindy and her friend's number so they can never contact me again. Later on, through mutual friends, I learned that Cindy and Melanie gave the suspect my name and address and set up the whole thing.